Hi, my name is Laurie Dobson, and this video is about woke culture and my take on it and what I think it stems from and what I think we can do about it as people caught in the dilemma of dealing with it in our younger generation particularly, and our concern about them. My concern has stemmed from my own experience with my own family and a lot of bewilderment about how it sort of became the dominant go-to for all senses of victimization and people that are now trying to empower themselves through abdication of compassion and empathy. So it's been an amazing journey with this new culture, this woke culture, and it has taken all sorts of things down. It's taken down, and I'm going to go back and say where I think it started with, it actually I think had its roots, some of its roots in the me generation. So we had the generation of boomers who came from being born after World War II, and all the people came back and started families. There was all these efforts to help them get started. So you had my parents' generation in the 30s, born in the 30s, and their focus was on making sure that children wanted for nothing. Not necessarily my parents, but their culture, the culture they were in, was to provide selflessly. And they had many children, and there was a great period of abundance, and I was at the tail end of the boomers. 56 I was born, so I'll say that I'm part of it. You know, I had the vantage point of looking at it in others that were 10 years older than me, the hippie generation, the flower children, the anti-war effort, and tune in, turn on, and drop out, and a lot of entitlement, a lot of beliefs that you could indulge yourself endlessly and not have to come to any kind of grip with your responsibilities in life. And there were many axioms back then that people who disapproved of the me generation used, and you know, the silver spoon in their mouth example is one, and others that sort of bemoaned the inability of people to know how to work hard and raise themselves up by their bootstraps, and to get ahead and really live up to the ideals of the West. You know, the chance to improve your life and to express yourself and be free, to improve your lot, and that you're the only thing that limited you was your own self-limitation, own imposed, that you could surmount those things and get ahead. So that kind of Jordan Peterson is a good example of someone who holds that view, and self-determinism, I think you could call it. And however, the me generation that I was able to witness seemed to be more concerned with finding ways to entertain and themselves, entertain and distract and procrastinate and not make the most of our opportunities. Not living up to our potential was often the way it was called. But since we combined to join a rebellious group with a big rebellious nature, the idea that we weren't living up to our potential was denied, because we felt that we were doing our own way, we were arriving at it our own way. And to an extent, you know, that creative exercise was used in philosophy, the New Age mindset, you know, and a lot of people using drugs for, you know, so-called inspiration and insight and that sort of thing, transcendentalism, and a lot of people who were using the freedom that they had to experience things, gurus and Buddhist, you know, a lot of experimenting with other religions and other ways of looking at life, and that a mind-opening kind of ways, which are great. And but the balance was not there as much. However, there was a big effort in the 80s. I guess that would have been my generation, really. I would have been, yeah, it would have been considered my prime years, where there was a a huge, so following on to the me generation at the end of it, which was sort of me on steroids, was to advance yourself at other people's cost, and the debacles of the the growth of hedge funds and the predatory capitalism really took off, and limits were and regulations were lifted, and we had campaign finance was lifted, so we had enormous corruption in the system, to the point where takeover capitalism and corporate seizure of all sort of ways of people having freedom to exercise their right to change their world and to do it democratically was eroded. And so that was a damage that ensued as a result of a lax amount of non-monitoring of responsibility in the wake of sort of a continual expression of self-centeredness. And I think that narcissism was incorporated into the culture at that point in a big way. 80s and 90s, and everybody thought that Obama would fix things because he had a smooth tongue and a glib way of expressing things, and it made it sound so nice. So we settled for a superficial, artificial mode of ways of dealing with things. And of course, he didn't change anything. He continued the policies of the the neocons, and then we have things today. So the woke culture that is really, to me, an outgrowth of a lot of that. And I find it kind of curious because I see a lot of people thinking it's the beginning of a change. I saw the debate at the Oxford Union debate on the title of it was called "Has Woke Culture Gone Too Far?" Konstantin Kisin, who has a podcast called Trigonomics, I think it's called Trigger. Anyway, he's got a very fast growing reader or listener audience. It's huge already, just because he really found a way to strike at the heart of what the impotence of the mindset of the woke culture. But he's not going to be taking away the drive of the youth to want to have an exercise of the power, because they've seen previous generations not being willing to stand up and provide the antidote of thinking, and that he has, since he's coming from a different culture in a different country, he can see, he's got the perspective, and he exercises it to an extent that he's a comedian, so he gets through, but to an extent that that many others can't seem to, and myself included, to be able to dismantle and instruct. And I feel that my role over time has been astonishingly limited and disempowered, not through my own actions, but the culture itself, discouraging. First, I noticed my children were not encouraged to have children. They were encouraged to have dogs and to consider those as their family. Not at the end of their life when they've had children and can, fill an empty nest like I profess to do with my 3 dachshunds. And it's wonderful. And I don't deny anybody's desire to have animals, but not as replacements for people, because children have a chance to live and survive into many years of their life, unlike dogs, and to not ever grow older than their parents, as my dogs are now older than me in dog years, or right at my age. And so I'm just, what I'm saying is that's a poor substitute, but it was given because of the disempowering, I believe, the disempowering of the family. And again, what does that support? That supports when you dismantle the functions that keep society stable and pro-human and pro-advancement and achievement. It's a really anti-human agenda. So I think I'm focusing on an anti-human agenda as a thread throughout these generations that I've seen, and that I now see at work in the world in a big way. And when I was watching the Oxford Union debate, there was a counter debate being made by a gentleman who was really he didn't believe that woke culture could go too far, that just by the fact that it was there and he saw it as necessary, it should never be limited. It should never have any impositions upon it. It should have its way and burn through the world with its righteous destructive zeal, and throw down all culture with it. And the danger to that is that these are younger people who don't have the benefit of perspective, who don't have the chance to look at the world from oh wow, that looks like this, and I've been there before, and I see that in this, sourcing itself from, and of course people older than me could see it source before my generation, but without the chance to grow through generations, to listen to elders, to see where you fit in a way that you can progress yourself and make your life better productively as part of a culture. I throw that responsibility back a ways and say that it's because my generation did not stand up and speak and be what we should be as instructors in the world, and develop and grow ourselves into adults. Not get distracted with the ways that we do with the internet and infotainment, the video games, any movies, any number of ways to eat our time and our resolve, and to eat away at our resolve. And so my goal here is to say, and as a result of this, I feel that I've fallen into a pattern. So I recently decided to go off of texting and social media. I'm still using my email, and I'll still see certain useful videos that are instructive, but to let myself dwell in a sort of another world where I don't have to have any role in the woke culture right now, which is narcissism to an extreme, and it's blind, because I don't think they see that there's any reason for them to be anything else. It's an infantile narcissistic pathology, but it's not self-reflective. So the danger there is that it's becoming a worldwide pathology, as I believe also that we've had a mass psychosis with the COVID, and the inability to stand against that, stand for truth, the fear of being who we are and speaking our truth going forward. I think a lot of that is a failure that feeds these fires of unbridled nihilistic, for the sake of having itself alone, and to call everything else base and hateful, is to destroy empathy and compassion, the foundation of family bonds, which are now being split everywhere, and to establish a sort of, it's an earthquake in the world, and it's a demand that we divide and so they can conquer, and they don't see, because they're young, they don't see that they're feeding the machine that wants them to be that way, to disempower the units and the core understandings, the common values that are in religion and culture and the law, and the work that's been done before to keep those things stable. Yes, there's horrific things that I will, absolutely condemn myself. The urge to war and the blatant hypocrisy of that. The abdication of the Democratic Party is a major downfall. The lack of the opposition to do its job, to denounce and to restore and rectify situations. It's all been a failure. Money has been the great destroyer of our culture. The love of money, the root of all evil. It's still there. It's still doing its worst, and we've empowered it. And so we have to undo these things, and we have to work against them. And I honored Jordan Peterson. I honored the people who are talking and speaking against wokeism, but in a larger context, I think we all have to speak out and say, this is not right, and this is not good for our families, this is not good for our homes, our life, our stability, our harmony, all the good things that we can offer people, happiness, the rights in the Constitution. We all have a chance if we work together, but we do have work to do, and we've let things go too far down the road. So truly woke culture has gone too far, but we've gone too far for a long time now, and it's time to stop it. Thank you.